Crystal Hills Hospital in Enugu gleamed like a five-star hotel. Polished marble floors reflected soft lighting. Glass walls revealed lush gardens, and every corner whispered of wealth. Inside the VIP suite, Chief Obinna Okeke, one of Nigeria's richest tech moguls, lay dying. His fortune had bought him the most advanced machines, the best specialists, and constant attention from 20 doctors. Yet nothing slowed his mysterious decline. Monitors beeped steadily, a cruel soundtrack to his fading strength. Specialists whispered in tense clusters, their brows knitted, their voices weighted with frustration. "We've exhausted all tests," muttered Dr. Samuel Udachukwu, their silver-haired leader, his foreign accent commanding respect. His symptoms defy every known diagnosis. But in the corner, unseen, another set of eyes watched. Grace Mbah, dressed in her plain cleaner's uniform, moved silently, mop in hand, wiping surfaces that cost more than her entire year's salary. At 38, life had bent her shoulders but never broken her spirit. Once, she had been a brilliant chemistry student at the University of Nigeria Nsukka, a scholarship star with dreams of medical research. But a tragic accident stole her parents, forcing her to drop out and care for 3 siblings. Her path had shifted to survival, yet her mind never stopped learning. As she worked, she inhaled the sterile air, but also something faintly metallic. Her eyes scanned Chief Okeke's face. His fingernails were tinged yellow. His hair, once thick, fell in uneven clumps. His gums carried a strange discoloration. A wave of recognition jolted her memory. She had read about this before, in her toxicology textbooks. These were not random symptoms, they formed a clear pattern. Her heart thudded. "I know what this is," she thought. But who would listen? She was just the maid. Every day the doctors walked past her as though she was invisible. They saw the uniform, not the intelligence burning behind her eyes. Grace paused, her hands gripping the mop tightly. She thought of her 2 children, Onyeka and Nanenna, waiting for her at home. Her life had taught her to stay quiet, to blend in, to survive. But watching Chief Okeke's chest rise and fall weakly, she realized silence was no longer an option. She saw what 30 specialists had missed. The question that burned inside her was not whether she was right. She knew she was. The real question was, would she risk her job, her livelihood, and her fragile safety to make someone listen? The following evening, Crystal Hills Hospital glowed with its usual quiet luxury. Nurses moved briskly through the halls, their shoes silent on marble floors. The air hummed with the steady rhythm of machines and hushed conversations. Grace pushed her cleaning cart along the corridor, head bowed as always, yet her eyes sharp, trained by years of unnoticed observation, missed nothing. As she entered Chief Obinna Okeke's suite, she saw a familiar figure, Chukwudi Naji. He was polished and confident, dressed in a tailored suit, gold cufflinks glinting under the warm light. Business magazines often called him the chief's closest friend and advisor. But Grace's instincts flared. Something about him seemed too deliberate, too rehearsed. He held a sleek black jar in his hand. "I brought his favorite body lotion," he announced smoothly. "Imported from Switzerland. It's the only brand that comforts him." He placed it prominently on the nightstand, his tone leaving no room for argument. The doctors barely noticed. They were too busy debating the next round of tests. Grace, however, noticed everything. The lotion had been in a slightly different place the previous night. Its metallic sheen caught her eye. She remembered the faint metallic scent she had detected earlier, the same scent that clung to the air whenever Chief Okeke's symptoms worsened. She bent down to scrub a corner of the suite, her posture humble, her mind racing. Could this be it? Could this lotion be the carrier of what's killing him? Her chemistry-trained memory whispered reminders. Some toxins are odorless, colorless, easily absorbed through skin, and notoriously hard to detect. She thought of the yellow nails, the hair loss, the abdominal pain. Her heart raced as she connected the dots. Later that night, as she wheeled her cart down the silent hall, Grace overheard two junior doctors whispering. "It's like he has 5 different diseases at once," one muttered. "Dr. Udachukwu thinks it's some kind of autoimmune storm." Grace clenched her jaw. She knew better. These weren't random conditions clashing inside his body. They were symptoms of a single deadly source. Yet doubt gnawed at her. Would anyone listen to her? To them, she was just a cleaner, invisible, irrelevant. She thought of her children again, their hungry eyes, their hopes she fought to keep alive. Speaking up might cost her the little stability she had. But then her gaze drifted back to the jar of lotion, gleaming under the soft lights like a silent predator. She knew she couldn't ignore it. Every instinct, every scrap of knowledge she had, screamed the same truth. Chief Obinna Okeke was being poisoned. The only question was, how could she prove it? By the 3rd night, Chief Obinna Okeke's condition had worsened alarmingly. Machines beeped in frantic rhythms, his skin grew pale, and his once commanding presence was reduced to shallow breaths and half-conscious murmurs. Doctors argued among themselves, flipping through charts, ordering more tests, chasing theories that led nowhere. Grace stood quietly in the background, dusting a counter, but her mind was ablaze. Every symptom fit the puzzle she had pieced together. Thallium poisoning. She had read about it during her university days, the perfect poisoner's tool, nearly impossible to detect unless one specifically looked for it. It explained everything: the nerve damage, the hair loss, the failing organs. She couldn't stay silent anymore. As Dr. Samuel Udachukwu left the room, Grace gathered every ounce of courage and approached him. "Doctor," she said softly, her voice trembling but steady, "Chief Okeke's symptoms, they match thallium poisoning. Have you tested for it?" The doctor froze, then turned slowly, his expression a mask of disbelief and irritation. "What did you just say?" "Thallium, sir. The discoloration of his nails. The hair." He cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Enough. You are the cleaning staff. Do not interfere in matters you cannot understand." His words landed like blows. Nurse Daisy, once friendly, pulled Grace aside later. "Grace, please, don't make trouble for yourself. These are the best specialists in Nigeria. If they haven't thought of it, maybe it's not important." Her cheeks burned with humiliation. She had dared to speak, and she had been silenced. Worse still, that night, the hospital's head of security stopped her in the corridor. "Madam Mbah, we've had reports of you involving yourself in medical discussions. This is a warning. Cross that line again and you could lose your job." Grace walked home with her head bowed, her heart heavy. At her small apartment in Abakpa, her children greeted her with tired smiles. Onyeka asked about her day. Nenna clung to her waist. Grace forced a smile, but inside her mind churned. After they slept, she pulled out her old toxicology textbook, worn and yellowed from years of secret reading. The words on the page confirmed her fears. Thallium poisoning caused progressive neurological decline and hair loss, exactly as she had seen. Tears blurred her vision, not of doubt, but of resolve. She whispered to herself, "They may not see me, but I will not stand by and watch him die." She knew what she had to do. If the doctors refused to listen, she would gather her own proof, even if it meant risking her job, her safety, and everything her family depended on. The next morning, Crystal Hills Hospital buzzed with nervous energy. Chief Obinna Okeke had suffered another crisis during the night, his organs failing one after another. Specialists hovered like shadows, prescribing treatments that brought no relief. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, fear, and defeat. Grace wheeled her cart into the suite at her usual time. To everyone else, she was invisible. But in her mind, she was a hunter, watching every detail. When she spotted the black jar of lotion gleaming on the nightstand, her heart pounded. Chukwudi Nnaji had delivered another one that morning, his confident smile masking his crime. Grace was certain now the lotion was the weapon. She waited patiently, cleaning the bathroom until the nurses changed shifts and the suite fell momentarily unattended. Her hands moved quickly, but carefully. From her cart, she pulled a sterile specimen container she had quietly taken from the supply room. With practiced efficiency, she scooped a small amount of the cream into the container and slipped it into her pocket. That night, at her modest kitchen table, Grace laid out her old toxicology textbook, yellowed notebooks, and the precious samples she had taken. She scavenged her cleaning supplies, baking soda, aluminum foil, even empty bottles. Her hands trembled as she improvised a crude but reliable test she remembered from her university days. When the solution changed color, her breath caught. It was unmistakable. Thallium. Tears welled in her eyes, partly from triumph, partly from terror. She had proof, but proof in her hands was dangerous. If the hospital discovered she had stolen samples, she could lose her job. Worse, Chukwudi might learn she suspected him. Still, as she stared at the glowing reaction under her dim kitchen light, her resolve hardened. She photographed the results with her old phone. She began charting Chief Okeke's symptoms against the timeline of Chukwudi's visits. Every pattern lined up perfectly. Her children peeked into the kitchen, rubbing their sleepy eyes. Onyeka asked, "Mommy, why are you still reading so late?" Grace pulled them close, kissing their foreheads. "Because knowledge can save lives, my son. And sometimes it's the only weapon we have." As they went back to bed, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow I will show them. They cannot ignore me forever." The maid, who had always been invisible, was about to step into the light, with truth as her shield. The atmosphere in Chief Obinna Okeke's suite was suffocating. A dozen specialists gathered in tense silence, their faces drawn with fatigue and frustration. The billionaire's vitals had plunged again, and the room reeked of defeat. Dr. Samuel Udachukwu stood at the center, speaking with his usual authority. "We've tried every known treatment. His body is failing. Unless we discover the root cause, he will not last another week." From the hallway, Grace's hands trembled around her cleaning cart. Inside her pocket lay the container with traces of the poisoned lotion, her crude test results captured in shaky photographs, and notes she had charted meticulously. She took a breath that felt like fire in her chest. She could no longer remain silent. Grace pushed the door open and stepped inside. Heads turned sharply. Conversation stopped. 30 pairs of eyes, all trained to see only fellow professionals, now locked on the maid who had dared to intrude. "This is a closed medical conference," Dr. Udachukwu snapped. "Please leave." Grace's voice shook at first. then steadied. Chief Okeke is dying of thallium poisoning, and I can prove it. The room erupted in murmurs. Udochukwu's eyes narrowed. Absurd. You are not a doctor. Grace straightened her back, clutching her papers. No, I'm not. But I was a chemistry honors student at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. I studied toxicology before life forced me out. His symptoms are textbook. The hair loss, the nerve damage, the abdominal pain, and the poison is being introduced through the body lotion he uses daily. She placed her photographs and notes on the table, her hands firm despite her pounding heart. I tested it myself. Crude, yes, but unmistakable. The lotion contains thallium. Every time it's applied, it delivers a dose that builds inside his body. Look at the timeline. The worsening of his symptoms matches every one of Chukwudi Nnaji's visits. Silence followed, heavy and dangerous. Then Dr. Ifeanyi Eze, the younger physician, leaned forward. Her reasoning makes sense. The progression is exactly what we've been struggling to explain. He flipped through her notes. If we run a targeted toxicology test, it could confirm this. Grace's chest rose with hope. For the first time, someone listened. Dr. Udochukwu glared, his pride wounded. Yet even he could not deny the precision of her explanation. Finally, he spoke through clenched teeth. Run the test! Grace stepped back, heart racing. She had crossed the line. The invisible Maid had made herself impossible to ignore. The toxicology lab results arrived faster than anyone expected. Within hours, the truth was undeniable. Chief Obinna Okeke's blood carried dangerously high levels of thallium. The confirmation sent ripples of shock through Crystal Hills Hospital. Nurses rushed to administer the antidote, Prussian blue, binding the poison that had been destroying his body for weeks. For the first time in months, Chief Okeke's vitals began to stabilize. The frantic beeping of machines slowed, the once panicked specialists breathing sighs of relief. Grace stood silently near the wall, her cleaning cart beside her. She should have felt triumphant, but her heart was racing with something deeper, a mix of fear, relief, and vindication. She had been right. She had been right all along. Dr. Samuel Udochukwu's face was tight with humiliation as he finally turned toward her. Your intervention, he said stiffly, was correct. The words caught in his throat, heavy as stones. 30 specialists missed it. And you saw it. Dr. Ifeanyi Eze stepped forward, his eyes filled with respect. Your observation saved his life, Grace. Without you, we would still be treating shadows. At that moment, hospital security entered, carrying reports and footage. The evidence was clear. Chukwudi Nnaji had tampered with the lotion during his visits, carefully ensuring it was applied to Chief Okeke's skin. His betrayal had been as deliberate as it was cruel. Police were called. By evening, Chukwudi was in custody, charged with attempted murder and corporate espionage. When Chief Okeke regained consciousness, his voice was hoarse, his body weak. He blinked at the unfamiliar faces crowding around his bed, then focused on Grace. Who saved me? Dr. Udochukwu hesitated. Pride fighting humility. Then he stepped aside. This is Grace Mbah, he said quietly, the maid. She solved what none of us could. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Grace's uniform still clung with the scent of bleach and disinfectant. But in that moment she stood taller, prouder, unshaken. Chief Okeke's gaze softened, and his lips curved into the faintest smile. Thank you, he whispered, his voice trembling, for seeing what they missed. Tears burned Grace's eyes. But she did not let them fall. She had been invisible her entire life. Tonight, the truth had made her visible at last. The hospital was never the same after that day. Word spread quickly. The Maid had outsmarted 30 specialists and saved Nigeria's most powerful tech mogul. Staff who once passed Grace without a glance now greeted her with nods of respect. Nurses smiled at her in the corridors. Even doctors who had once dismissed her as invisible now sought her out for quiet conversations. But for Grace, the greatest moment came a week later. Chief Obinna Okeke, thinner but recovering steadily, requested her presence. Nervously, she entered his private suite. The billionaire, propped up against his pillows, studied her with clear, grateful eyes. "They told me everything," he said softly. "You saved my life. And not just by luck with knowledge, with determination, with courage." Grace lowered her gaze. "I only did what I knew was right, sir." He smiled faintly. "That humility is why you deserve more. Dr. Asa told me about your background, your studies cut short, your brilliance hidden by circumstance. Intelligence like yours should never be wasted." From the bedside table, he slid a sleek folder toward her. Inside was more than she had ever dared to dream. A full scholarship to return to the University of Nigeria in Nsukka to complete her chemistry degree, a living stipend for her children, and an internship in the hospital's toxicology department. Tears welled in Grace's eyes. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Sir, this is too much." "No," Chief Okeke replied firmly. "It's not charity. It's an investment in a mind that refused to give up. You saw what 30 doctors missed because you never stopped learning. That is the kind of vision the world needs." That evening, Grace gathered her children around their small kitchen table. She explained how their lives would change, how she would return to school, how they would never again have to wonder if tomorrow's meals would come. Onyeka's eyes widened with pride. "Mommy, you saved a billionaire." Grace smiled through her tears. "No, my son. I used knowledge I never stopped building. And now, because of it, our story is changing." For the first time in years, hope filled their home. Hope not borrowed from dreams, but earned through sacrifice, courage, and truth. 2 months later, Grace Mbah walked through the grand gates of the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, not as a cleaner passing through hidden back doors, but as a student once more. The ID card hanging from her neck felt surreal. In the afternoons, she changed into a crisp white coat at Crystal Hills Hospital, no longer carrying a mop, but a tablet and lab files. She had reclaimed the dream she thought was lost forever. At first, she doubted herself. Would she still belong in lecture halls after so many years? Would she falter in laboratories now filled with students much younger than her? But every time fear whispered, she remembered the night she had stood before 30 specialists and spoken truth no one else could see. That memory became her anchor. Her children, Onyeka and Enenna, glowed with pride. They watched her study late into the night, her books spread across the same kitchen table where she once tested poison with cleaning supplies. "Mommy," Nena said one evening, "you're our hero." Grace kissed her daughter's forehead and replied, "No, my child, I just refuse to let life steal my mind." Chief Okeke, now fully recovered, launched the Okeke Foundation for Hidden Talent, inspired by Grace's story. The foundation searched for brilliant Nigerians whose education had been interrupted by poverty or tragedy, offering them the chance to rise again. At his first public event, Grace stood beside him, no longer invisible, her name spoken with respect. Months later, she addressed a medical conference filled with the same kind of experts who once ignored her. Her voice carried steady and strong. Observation doesn't require a title. Wisdom isn't limited to those with certificates. Sometimes the greatest answers come from the most unexpected places. I was invisible for years, but it was in that invisibility I learned to see what others overlooked. The hall erupted in applause. Among the audience, Dr. Ifeanyi Eze nodded proudly, while even Dr. Samuel Udochukwu, humbled and chastened, clapped along. Grace smiled, her heart steady. She had stepped out of the shadows of invisibility into a legacy of light. For herself, for her children, for every unseen person whose mind carried brilliance the world had yet to recognize. And so the maid who once scrubbed floors became a healer, a teacher, and a symbol proof that knowledge, courage, and compassion can rewrite destinies.